Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I was thinking about doing a kind of a little more of an in-depth video, I guess if you want to say. So if you're considering buying a 6-liter Powerstroke, I want to go over some of the key things to look for when you're going to purchase one, or going to look at one, or going to just see if it's the right fit for you. So I would like to go over a few things on the truck that if you're going to check one out, what you should inspect, what you should look at, what you should smell. So purpose of this video is I see so many comments on like the 6-liter Powerstroke forums, or I see so many comments on Facebook or wherever else about people asking, it's like, oh, I just turned 16. Let me go see if I can go buy my first diesel. And everybody, when they want to get into the diesel game, they get a 6-liter Powerstroke because number one, it's cheap-ish. It is cheaper than buying a Cummins. You still have the diesel, and then everybody loves that Chewbacca sound at the end when you give it the wide open throttle. No, they're not fast. They can be, but then you got to put a lot more work into it, and then it's a lot more of a mental game playing with you about, is it going to blow up? Because if it blows up high horsepower, it's most likely going to blow up stock too. So these motors are really good when they're very well maintained. You just have to be able to have the time, the money, and the patience, because there's a lot of rabbit holes that you have to run down with this truck. And I mean, they're old. They're almost, I mean, some of them are over 20 years old. So let's go over to the truck, let's pop the hood, let's jump under and see a few things that you should check before buying a 6-liter Powerstroke. And maybe if it's something that is wrong with the truck, might be worth buying it just to buy this one extra aftermarket part to put onto the vehicle to make it run. You might get a good deal that way. So let's head over to the truck and I will pop the hood and I'll show you guys some things that I would look for. So first things first, for those of you who may be new to the channel, maybe new to checking me out, and this might just be your first video of mine that you're watching. So this is my 6-liter Powerstroke. It is a 2005 F350. I've done a lot of work to this thing. There's been a lot of work that was done to it before I bought it. I did buy it from a very reliable source and somebody who is very maintenance meticulous. So the first thing, in my opinion, that you want to look for, and this is just a convenience thing because I like luxury to an extent, and I like amenities within my vehicle. So even if you're buying a base model like work truck 6-liter, make sure the interior is in okay condition. It wasn't just destroyed its whole life. So as you can see here, my truck is in immaculate condition because I take care of it, and it was taken care of its whole life. This is the Harley Davidson edition, so it does have full power everything, full heated everything, other than steering wheel. Everything is still stock on it. It has stock radio, stock climate. The only thing that is done interior wise to the truck is an Edge CTS3 monitor, and I was using that mainly to monitor my oil and coolant temps when I had a stock oil cooler in it. So check your interior. I mean, your interior is going to be a great sign of how the truck was treated, right? It's a great sign of how the person who owned it before you maintained this truck, treated it, because a lot of times if your interior is all messed up, they slack on maintenance and oil changes and belts and wiring and everything you can think of. Going under the hood, it is a fairly stock truck, you could say. I mean, it is modified, but it is tastefully modified. So we still have the stock airbox, right? It is a brand new turbo, has CAT ELC coolant in it from when we had the original oil cooler. But now, I don't know if you can see, there's one of the oil lines for the Bulletproof Diesel air to oil cooler kit, and it runs all the way down to the front mounted air to oil cooler in there. When buying a 6-liter that does not have a Bulletproof Diesel air to oil cooler kit, you want to make sure your coolant level is at the correct height. And with these trucks, they came out with a revision. If you have the old degas bottle, so if you have the old degas bottle, The max line is too much. It'll create too much pressure in the system. And just below, in the area from the min line down to the bottom of the reservoir, or like where mine is at right now, this is the happy zone that these trucks live in. So you want to make sure it's not overfilled on coolant, because if it's overfilled on coolant, you have more of a chance to bust head gaskets, blow your oil cooler, because you're going to have some high pressurization within that system. So, main things to look for in these trucks. Check your oil filter cap. If it is the tall version, you need to make sure that it has the tall filter in it as well. What will happen is you'll have a stock Motorcraft oil filter with a tall cap, and that is not pushing that filter down enough to release that valve, the drain back valve for the oil. So that is a cause for concern. That will hurt your engine 9 times out of 10. If it is not caught within a certain amount of time, your engine could have a catastrophic failure due to oil starvation, and we don't want that, obviously. Check your batteries. Check your batteries. Make sure your batteries are good, full. You don't want these trucks running on weak batteries, because the FICM that they use runs off of voltage, and if your batteries go down, you'll lose power to your FICM, and then no fuel. You'll burn out your FICM, and your truck won't start. So make sure you have good batteries. Check to see if they have the upgraded battery cables, the 0 gauge kit. That's very helpful when starting. It just pushes more power to the FICM, better control over flow of power. Double check underneath the turbo. Get in there, get your hands dirty. I'm not saying rip apart that person's truck, but get in there with a flashlight, check everything. Look for leaks. So it's very common to have leaks above the H-pop. Your high pressure oil pump is very common to have leaks on the bed plate, which is the back of the motor going to the transmission. To be able to fix that, you have to pull your motor. So that's not a big deal. My truck has a bed plate leak, and it's not enough for me to have a worry, obviously, or else I would have fixed it. But it's leaking very little bit. But check for leaks over the H-pop cover, around the heads. Check for like the turbo drain bag valve. That's a big one. Your turbo just sits on it, and the oil that goes through drains back into your H-pop reservoir. So double check all of those things. Make sure you're good on oil leaks. Check all of your fluids. And here's one of the biggest tricks that I've learned is you want to take that wire right here. It comes apart very easily. You want to pull it, and you want to pull this guy off right here. So that is your starter. A starter wire goes directly down to your starter, and what you want to do is you want to take it and you want to put it up against the positive terminal of the battery, and you want to push. This will turn your motor over. So this wire right over here goes straight to your starter. This will turn your motor over without giving it any fuel, so it won't start. But this is a very good wire to use for when you're priming an oil system on these trucks. Hook up a battery charger to all these and crank it over. Just with this, so it doesn't starve itself of oil, it's not spinning too fast or creating too much heat. So what you want to do with this when you're checking it, pull it off, put it up against the positive terminal of the battery, and your engine will turn over. And you want to listen. You want it to be a constant, you want it to be turning over consistently, because if it has skips in there and it sounds odd, then you know one of your cylinders or multiple of your cylinders is low on compression. So this is a very good way to compression test without pulling injectors or glow plugs or anything like that, to be able to test the actual compression of the motor. Just test it by sound. If it sounds healthy, when it's turning over, there's a good chance that it is healthy. Not saying that it is a foolproof way, but this is just a way to be able to check for compression and make sure everything is good to go on this truck. A couple of things that I would look for, and this is just me being picky, right, is check for any external or extra wiring. People will wire in gauges if they have gauge pods. You want to make sure that all of that is done correctly, because if it is not, and you have an open power line or anything like that that could be cut, snipped, broke, Not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm saying that it could happen to where it catches and grounds on something, shorts out, catches on fire, right? And we don't want that, because we want to be able to buy the truck. We want to be able to run it and enjoy it and have fun. Check for any aftermarket, extra wiring, anything like that. So like I said, I do have an Edge CTS3 monitor. And this is how all the wiring is set up. It comes with these quick connects, and all of it is running to EGT, oil pressure, oil temp, everything. And so it is ran cleanly back here. Main wire goes down and up into the pillar, pulled out, plugged into my CTS3. Check fluids. I can't tell you how many times somebody wanted to go buy a 6-liter, and I've seen this all around, and it just has enough oil to make it run, for the H-pump to run, but it is not up to its, in between its min and max line. These trucks run on oil pressure, okay? So you need high pressure oil to do numerous amount of things with this vehicle. Number one is mainly fire injectors. It's a Huey system truck. You need oil pressure to fire your injectors. So there's a multitude of things that could be causing you to not read high pressure. You have all these sensors. So your ICP, your injector control pressure sensor, is basically a high pressure oil sensor to an extent. It needs communication, and it reads. If you have a late model 04 and up, I believe, the ICP is located on the valve cover. It is located right there. That is your ICP sensor on the valve cover of these trucks, sitting right there. So you want to make sure that's plugged in, and you also want to make sure that it is reading pressure, because these trucks need to see 500 psi of oil pressure before they're even willing to send fuel to start. So biggest thing with that, make sure it's not leaking around it, and also that goes back to the same thing I was talking about, is check all of your covers. You have your oil cooler cover, you have your H-pop cover on the top of the valley. Look around those, make sure there's no leaks, make sure it's dry as it can be, because everybody knows that the 6-liter is a very leaky motor. Not as leaky as the 7.3s. So once you have all of those things checked, I mean, your main component is to just check sensors, check everything, make sure nothing's broken, busted, as much as you can. Like, these trucks have the cowl over the turbo that have the main wire harness running underneath them. Those are always prone to breaking. That's just an aesthetic piece. But try and look for a nice clean truck, because you don't want something that's been sitting in Michigan all tore up, rusted, beat up, unless that's what you're looking for a long style project. So one of the biggest things that I would say to do is, when you're going to buy a 6-liter, make sure the guy doesn't start it and warm it up before you get there. You want to be able to make sure everything is working perfectly. You want the truck dead cold when you get there, so you can see how it starts cold, how the glow plugs function, because that's another big issue, is the glow plugs and glow plug harnesses on these trucks. You want to make sure that those function correctly and your truck has no problem starting in the cold. Hot no start is usually, 99% of the time, a high pressure oil system issue. If you have a high pressure oil leak, when the oil is thinner, it will not make that 500 psi for the truck to fire off. Cold no starts typically have to do with glow plugs. These trucks should start without glow plugs, and they do if they're maintained correctly. So if you have a cold no start, it's usually around 1 of 2 problems. Your 1 of 2 problems will be glow plugs and glow plug harnesses that aren't working, or your injectors. But make sure that the truck is dead cold when you get there, so you can see how it starts up cold, how it reacts, if there's any stutter, anything wrong with the turbo. You want to be able to listen for the turbo VGT cycle as well. Check for aftermarket parts. Like, if you're going to buy an 06 and he has a 10-blade turbo in it, that's not original to the truck, he's done some work, or he thinks it's cool. Once you pop the hood on a 6-liter, you will be able to tell 99% of the time how an owner has treated their vehicle just by parts that they've put on it. If they've put cheap parts on there, I mean, it's probably been romped on, ripped around, not taken care of, not doing maintenance like they should, or they are doing maintenance but they're beating the piss out of it. So look for that, because these trucks don't like to be beat to shit. But if they do, I mean, some of them are tanks, and it just is what it is at that point. Another thing that I would say to check prior to buying the truck, obviously when you're doing your inspection, is go to the heads. Go look down at the head. Make sure one of which ways. Make sure it has head bolts or head studs. If it has head studs, that'll save you money in the long run to make sure that that job was done and you won't have any issues with it anymore to a certain extent, unless you put high horsepower numbers up. Head studs are detrimental to these motors. Like, they need them. They don't need them, but if you're going to be wanting to play around, make some power, do whatever you need, head studs are a must. If it is a stock oil cooler, check to see if they have a coolant filtration system on it. Like this guy right here. Check to see if they have a coolant filtration system. That is basically just a bypass filter from the reservoir and the main coolant line from the heater core back in here, filtering back up and pushing back into the reservoir and the radiator. So you want to double check and make sure they have one of these, because that will help out a lot in saving your oil cooler from getting clogged up. And you want to ask questions. You want to ask him what type of oil that he's been using. Obviously you want to ask for any aftermarket parts, because if you have a bulletproof system, your oil filter will be relocated down to the front fender well down here, where all of your oil lines run from and to your your actual oil cooler. So ask questions. Ask what filters he's been using, ask what oil he's been running, what coolant he has in it. Basically bombard him with questions, and if he can't give you any good answers, or he stutters, or he makes up excuses, walk away. Go find another truck. It's not worth the headache or the money to be able to have a truck that you're going to get home and it's going to blow up. Take your time, do your research, make sure everything's clean. Just cleanliness is godliness on these motors. You want to be clean, you want to be precise, you want to make sure nothing's broken, because if one thing breaks, it can lead to a catastrophic failure on multiple avenues of approach. Just take your time, look through them, and don't buy one if you have any suspicions, because it will cost you money. A lot of money. Like I was saying, be patient, the right truck will come, and if you think you can't maintain a 6-liter or you don't want to deal with the headaches that come with it, buy a Cummins, because that's gonna save you a lot of headache. It will cost a little more money up front. I would like to get a Cummins at some point in my life too, but I'm far enough into this truck to where I feel that it can go for a long time. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, like the video, comment, share your thoughts, what you believe you would see out in the world when you're going to look for a 6-liter. Tell me what you would look for. Obviously the 5 main failure points on these trucks, I mean, if those things get fixed, there's more than 5, but there's like 5 big ones. If those get fixed, then I mean, the truck it's a solid running truck. It's a good truck. But I want to thank each and every one of you for stopping by and checking out this video. I do appreciate all the support that I'm getting from you guys. And a nice piece of information is I just hit 100 subscribers on YouTube, and I honestly, personally, didn't think it was possible. I know to a lot of you that's not that big of an accomplishment, but to me, somebody who's doing this on the side and just, you know, wanting to make videos, to have 100 people like my channel and want to follow me along, that is astronomically insane to me. I want to thank every single one of you for coming by, checking out the channel, and if you drop a subscribe, I appreciate that so much. You have no idea. That's a big deal to me, to hit 100 subscribers. That was my goal for all of 2023, was to hit 100 subscribers, and I did it in the first month. So I just appreciate every single one of you guys coming by, liking the video, watching the content. It helps me out so much because it gives me motivation to make more videos and work harder on my editing and trying to figure out all of this. Like, you see some of the big YouTubers, some of them are still very genuine, and that's great. but some of them aren't. You know, they started low down here and they made videos and they built up a team, which is great. But I take pride in making my videos, and maybe some point in life I would have to hire on another person, if it ever gets to that point, to be able to help me film, edit videos, do some work. But in the meantime, it's just me. So I make videos in my garage and I put them out to you guys. I spend hours editing videos. I spend hours and hours of my time so you guys can watch a couple minutes of content, and I find happiness and peace in doing that. It just gives me something to do, and also hopefully gives you guys some insight, some knowledge, something you never thought of before, you know. So I appreciate every single one of you for stopping by and checking out this video. Once again, thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next upload.